Good evening, everyone. If you could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much. Please be seated. Good evening, everyone. I want to welcome you to the December 18th, 2023 Zoning Hearing Master hearing. My name is Susan Finch, and I'll be presiding as the hearing master over this evening's cases. Let me start by introducing Ms. Michelle Heinrich. She's to my right, and she's with the Development Services Department. She'll introduce other staff members that will participate in our hearing tonight, as well as go over any changes we have. Ms. Heinrich.
Hello again, Michelle Heinrich, Development Services. From the County Attorney's Office, we have Mary Dorman, and from the Planning Commission, we have Andrea Papandrew. And I'll just go over the changes to the agenda from the continuance sheet, or the change sheet. The first one is agenda page 4, item A11, PD 23-0775. This application is being withdrawn from the ZHM process. Agenda page 8, PD 23-0584. And staff is requesting a continuance of this application to the January 16th, 2024 ZHM hearing.
All right, thank you. Let me ask if there's anyone in the audience for agenda item D, as in dog, D2. It's rezoning PD 23-0584. Is there anyone in the audience that was here to speak to that item? Okay, good. Well, then there we go. It's being continued to January 16th, 2024 at 6 p.m. Ms. Heinrich.
Are you ready for the published changes?
Yes, please.
Item A1, PD 23-0287. This application is being withdrawn by the zoning administrator in accordance with LDC section 10.03.02.C.2. Item A2, PD 23-0406. This application is being withdrawn from the ZHM process. Item A3, Major Mod 23-0518. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the January 16th, 2024 ZHM hearing. Item A4, PD 23-0540. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the January 16th, 2024 ZHM hearing. Item A5, PD 23-0583. This application is being withdrawn from the ZHM process. Item A6, Standard Rezoning 23-0588. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the January 16th, 2024 ZHM hearing. Item A7, Major Mod 23-0617. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the January 16th, 2024 ZHM hearing. Item A8, Major Mod 23-0768. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the January 16th, 2024 ZHM hearing. Item A9, Standard Rezoning 23-0771. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the January 16th, 2024 ZHM hearing. Item A10, PD 23-0774. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the January 16th, 2024 ZHM hearing. Item A11 was already addressed in our previous unpublished changes. I'll go ahead and announce that again. PD 23-0775. This application is being withdrawn from the ZHM process. Item A12, PD 23-0776. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the January 16th, 2024 ZHM hearing. Item A13, PD 23-0778. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the February 20th, 2024 ZHM hearing. Item A14, PD 23-0780. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the January 16th, 2024 ZHM hearing. Item A15, PD 23-0781. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the February 20th, 2024 ZHM hearing. Item A16, PD 23-0783. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the January 16th, 2024 ZHM hearing. Item A17, PD 23-0785. This application is being continued by the applicant to the January 16th, 2024 ZHM hearing. Item A18, Major Mod 23-0881. This application is being continued by the applicant to the January 16th, 2024 ZHM hearing. Item A19, PD 23-0882. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the January 16th, 2024 ZHM hearing. Item A20, Major Mod 23-0887. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the January 16th, 2024 ZHM hearing. Item A21, Major Mod Application 23-0904. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the January 16th, 2024 ZHM hearing. Item A22, PD 23-0918. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the January 16th, 2024 ZHM hearing. Item A23, Major Mod 23-0951. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the January 16th, 2024 ZHM hearing. Item A24, Special Use 23-0955. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the January 16th, 2024 ZHM hearing. Item A, or Agenda Item A25, PD 23-0992. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the January 16th, 2024 ZHM hearing. Item A26, PD 23-0993. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the January 16th, 2024 ZHM hearing. Item A27, PD 23-0994. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the January 16th, 2024 ZHM hearing. Item A28, PD 23-0997. This application is being continued by the applicant to the January 16th, 2024 ZHM hearing. Item A29, Standard Rezoning 23-1041. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the January 16th, 2024 ZHM hearing. Item A30, Standard Rezoning 24-0074. This application is being continued by staff to the January 16th, 2024 ZHM hearing, and that concludes our continuances.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Let me start by going over our hearing procedures for tonight's hearing. Our hearing today consists of agenda items that require a public hearing by a zoning hearing master. I'll conduct a hearing on each agenda item and will file a recommendation within 15 business days following today's hearings. Those recommendations are then sent to the Board of County Commissioners, who will make the final decision on each agenda item. Our hearing tonight is informal. I'll ask questions related to the scope of direct testimony. I may call and question witnesses as I deem appropriate, and I will decide all questions of procedure. I'll take evidence, but will exclude evidence that is irrelevant, immaterial, or unduly repetitious. Evidence must be presented in written form, and all testimony must be under oath. Hearsay evidence may be used to supplement or explain other evidence, but shall not be sufficient alone to support a finding by me unless it would be admissible over objections in a civil action. Our order of presentation for tonight's agenda items is as follows. We start with Ms. Heinrich of the Development Services Department, who makes a brief introduction for each agenda item. We then go to the applicant. Their applicant and their team goes next, and they have a total of 15 minutes to make their presentation. We then turn back to the Development Services staff planner that was assigned the case. They have 5 minutes to report the county's findings on the agenda item. Next up, the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission also has 5 minutes to make their findings regarding consistency with the county's comprehensive plan. Then we'll go to proponents, anyone who would like to speak in favor of an application. 15 minutes for everyone that wants to speak in favor. The same is true next when we go to opponents, anyone who wants to speak against an application. Everybody combined is 15 minutes. We'll then go back to Development Services, who has 5 minutes to make any comments or adjustments based on tonight's testimony. And then finally, the applicant has the last word with 5 minutes of rebuttal. I don't think we have this issue, but just for the record, for proponents and opponents, people that want to speak in favor or against, it is 15 minutes total each side. If there are multiple people that want to speak either in favor or against, I will ask for a show of hands. We have people in the room that want to speak, and we also have people participating virtually. for this hearing. So I'll get a count of hands, and we'll divide that 15 minutes as equally and as fairly as possible. If you are speaking tonight, whether you're in the room or online, always start by giving us your name. We are recording this hearing, and we want to make sure that we have who is speaking to which agenda item accurately. The first time you speak, if you could give us your name and also your address, so we have that. And then if you are in the room, when you're done with your presentation or your comments, if you could see Michael. Michael, raise your hand. He's over there with the clerk's office. He is keeping a log. So when you're done speaking and you're here with us in the room, head over his way and sign in with your name, address, and the case number you're speaking to. Let me now ask the county attorney, Ms. Dorman, if she can provide us the legal requirements which govern your participation at the Board of County Commissioners meeting. Ms. Dorman.
Good evening, Mary Dorman from the County Attorney's Office. Tonight's public hearing is the first step of a two-step rezoning process. This hearing is the time for rezoning applicants and interested parties to present testimony and evidence. Any evidence presented tonight will become the complete factual record of each application, and no additional evidence can be introduced after the closing of each application. The second step of the rezoning process is a public meeting before the Board of County Commissioners, where the board will make a decision on each application heard tonight. Tonight's applications are scheduled to be heard by the board at its February 13th, 2024 land use meeting. When considering applications, the board will only review the record created at tonight's hearing and the recommendation made by the land use hearing officer for each application. The land use hearing officer will file a recommendation for each application heard tonight by January 11th, 2024. The Board of County Commissioners has established a policy that directs which rezoning and major modification applications are to be placed on the consent agenda of the board's land use meeting. Applications that propose to add density outside the urban service area, applications that are on roadways with a failing level of service, and applications that have had evidence or testimony provided to the record by non-applicant parties of record, either prior to or at the public hearing tonight, are not qualified for placement on the consent agenda. Applications which do not have consistent recommendations of approval or denial are also not qualified to be placed on the consent agenda. The board will allow public testimony by parties of record at its meeting to consider the land use hearing officer's recommendation for any item on the regular agenda. Any public testimony will be limited to the record of the proceedings before the land use hearing officer unless additional evidence has been found admissible in accordance with Section 10.03.04D of the Land Development Code. A party of record is an individual who fits into at least one of the following four categories. First, an individual who is present tonight and presents testimony or documentary evidence. Second, an individual certified by the U.S. Postal Service as having been mailed notice of tonight's hearing. Third, an individual who submitted documentary evidence to the master file at least 2 business days prior to tonight's hearing. Or fourth, an individual who submitted documentary evidence by proxy at tonight's hearing. Again, the content of oral argument before the board shall be limited to the content of the testimony and other evidence submitted verbally or in writing to the land use hearing officer tonight. It is the role of the county attorney's office to ensure that only individuals who have met these requirements are allowed to speak before the board, and to ensure that no new evidence or testimony is introduced or allowed at the board's public meeting. For these reasons, please make sure that all information you wish the board to consider at its public meeting is entered into tonight's record.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. As I mentioned, all testimony must be under oath. So if you are in the room or online, if you plan to speak tonight, if you could please stand and raise your right hand while I swear you in. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you so much.
I do.
Please be seated. All right, Ms. Heinrich, that takes us to the first case.
Our first item is item C1, standard rezoning 23-0714. The applicant is requesting to rezone property from AR and RSC 6 to RSC 9 restricted. Jared Folan with Development Services will provide staff findings after the applicant's presentation.
Good evening,
Good
Cammie
evening.
Corbett with the law firm of Hill, Ward and Henderson, 101 East Kennedy Boulevard, Suite 3700, Tampa, Florida. I'm here this evening representing Highland Homes. The development location is in Ruskin. It's south of College Avenue and west of I-75. And as Michelle indicated, we are proposing an RSC 9 restricted rezoning with the following restrictions. The development shall comply with the Ruskin Community Character Guidelines. Development is limited to the maximum density of the future land use category, which is residential 4 here. The minimum lot size is 6,000 square feet for all lots, and the minimum lot width is at least 20% of the lots must be 60 feet wide, and the remaining lots must be 55 feet wide. We are providing interconnections to the east, west, and south at Southwest 1st Street Southeast to connect to the existing First Street Southeast. And we have a prohibition on internal cul-de-sacs, and gates are not permitted. And all of those restrictions, if you were to look in the Land Development Code with respect to what are the Ruskin Community Character Design Guidelines, those are all consistent with those guidelines. What's at issue in this case with the Planning Commission is whether or not we've satisfied this portion of the Ruskin Community Plan that says that development should connect or replicate the traditional grid street pattern to the greatest extent practicable. And what does practicable mean? It means it must be feasible. In this instance, it's not practicable to provide more connections than we've already agreed to. I'll show you some images to back this up, but 2nd Street has been vacated and is in use for purposes other than right-of-way. 3rd Street Southeast terminates at 16th Avenue Southwest, and 16th Avenue Southwest is in active use as a stormwater drainage area with no plans to improve. And staff, Development Services did ask us to look at the improvement of 3rd Street South along our project's eastern boundary, but we were able to provide a cost estimate indicated that would be well in excess of $500,000, which would not be proportionate to the scale of development that we're proposing here. We're only going to propose about 63, 65 lots, and that would be, the cost was deemed prohibitive. Again, this is the surrounding area. The 2nd Street area that I indicated has been vacated is the area to the north, separating the property, subject property, from the drainage pond that you can see to the north, as well as the Community Resource Center. And then you can see on the southern area, which is 16th Avenue Southwest, you can see that it's all vegetated right now, and it is serving as an active drainage ditch to Hillsborough County. Similar with 3rd Street, you can see there's a lot of vegetation, a lot of trees there, thus increasing the costs associated with having to improve that. We do have a companion vacating application, which seeks to vacate those internal right-of-ways that you see in between the red squares on the property. So that is in process and will be heard by the board at the same time as this application. This exhibit is from the Planning Commission staff report on what they required for connectivity. The circles in green, the connections on the east and the west, and one connection on the south are being proposed in part of the restrictions. These 2 X's along 2nd Street Southeast are not being proposed. Essentially, that dead ends into the Community Resource Center. And you can see that actually 3rd Street Southeast is not being vacated by the requested vacation, and a more logical place for a connection to the north would be along that right-of-way. And I'll show you a little bit more what I mean here. See the yellow oval is that location of where that connection would occur. You can see that it's partially in the stormwater pond and partially at the Community Resource Center. And so that dead ends right into their driveway. The green box on the right is where, again, I think the more logical connection, if it were to occur, the county ever wanted to create a connection from this development to that Community Resources Center, that's where that would be located. And just for reference, this is the area in question. This is the Community Resource Center. This is the area where the 2nd Street has been vacated and is already in use for other purposes. You can see some light striping there. The handicap parking is being provided there. Again, this is another shot looking south where you can see there's parking provided in where there would be a right-of-way and a roadway and a connection. This is actually the Ruskin Infant Center. that is located most due south. So this is for a child development center that's on the southern portion of this property. And again, you could see these driveways are not really suitable for public roadways. Any kind of connection would not be to a suitable public right-of-way. Again, more one-way crossings. It's really kind of a mishmash of driveways at this location. And again, more of the same. You can see they're not standard roadways. They're not suitable for public traffic and would not be a logical location for a connection. And that's really what's at the heart of this application and what's at the heart of any controversy. We have not had any requests for additional information or anyone expressing concerns about this rezoning. It's really about whether or not we can provide additional access connections, and Development Services has found that the request is supportable based on the conditions that we have proposed for the restrictions. And the Planning Commission itself cites several goals, objectives, and policies supporting approval regarding the consistency with compatibility of the surrounding area, consistency with neighborhood protection policies, and adherence to the design guidelines. And really what we have is a disagreement about whether or not those additional connections are practicable. And I'm here with Heather Wirtz, who is our project engineer, who can answer any questions should you have any, and a couple of representatives from my clients as well.
Let me ask you a couple questions. First of all, we are not normally in this room. If you ever come to the zoning hearing master meeting, we are not normally in this room, and we're not normally this far away from, so anyway, that's
It is
throwing
odd.
us a little off. My first question pertains to connectivity, of course, and your graphic that showed where it would have been logical at 3rd Street Southeast. Is that right? Can you go back to that graphic?
This one?
So, yes, so that, the right-of-way does not exist to the north or to the east adjacent to your project, is that correct?
So the right-of-way does exist to the east. We're not seeking to vacate it. You can see, maybe if I go back to
Yes.
the vacating, other way. Go back to this slide, and I could probably actually, Heather, if you want to go hand Ms. Finch this hard copy of the PowerPoint presentation, it might be a little easier to see than trying to
We'll
look
give
at
you
it.
some extra time to get down here.
So you see 2nd Street to the north has been vacated. And 2nd Street to the north is where the drainage pond is and where those, the Ruskin Infant Center is utilizing that for their parking. The right-of-way all the way to the east, you can see that's not being included in the right-of-way vacation application, so that's going to remain a right-of-way.
I see.
And should Hillsborough County choose to improve it, we are providing connectivity to the east, and so the more logical vehicular connection to that resource center would be from that connection point up, taking a left and up on an improved right-of-way, rather than through the development of the county park and resource center, which has long been developed. And I think the Planning Commission made reference to maybe some time in the future, but again, that's in use now. It doesn't, there's no plans for the county to use it in any other way.
And the drive areas you showed in your photos around that resource center, those are internal driveways for that project?
Yes, and you can look at this aerial, you can sort of see a little bit better and where that, the internal right-of-way where the Planning Commission was asking for the connection, you could see it sort of dead ends, maybe partially on the drainage area and maybe partially to the other property, but yes, it goes right into the internal driveways where those parking spaces are in use right now. And actually, that right-of-way is not, that area has been vacated, so it's not even the standard width, so it's probably no longer even, you could probably get one car, but it's not a standard roadway.
Are there any Ruskin guidelines that you are not meeting?
No.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Please sign in with the clerk's office. All right, we'll go to Development Services, please. Good evening.
Good evening, Jared Fallon with Development Services. So as was stated, this is a request to rezone approximately 15.85 acres parcel from residential single-family conventional 4 and agricultural rural to RSC 9 restrictive in order to facilitate a residential single-family development at a density of 4 units per acre. The applicant has also submitted a vacation request to vacate existing platted right-of-way on the property to prepare it for the new subdivision, and it will run concurrently with the application when it is sent to the Board of County Commissioners. So the subject property is located at 1502 Southwest First Street. It is within the Ruskin Community Plan and the South Shore Community Plan areas and is located in the urban service area. The current use of the property is a tree nursery and contains one single-family home. Surrounding properties primarily consist of residential uses of various densities and residential agricultural zonings, but some non-residential uses such as the Resource Center is to the north, adjacent, along with the large detention pond that is maintained by Hillsborough County. To the northwest, you will find commercial uses and districts concentrated along Highway 42, which is about 800 feet away. And as mentioned, the property is located within the Ruskin Community Plan, specifically in Area 3. The plan provides character strategies for residential developments to encourage a diversity of home styles and types and to protect the small town character of the Ruskin area. These strategies include the size and dimensions of lots and the design of the neighborhood's layout to resemble a traditional grid pattern. The Land Development Code, Part 3.22.00, Ruskin Community Guidelines, further provides codified guidelines that are required to be met. To ensure the development meets the plan in LDC, the applicant has proposed restrictions that include a minimum lot size of 6,000 square feet and prohibiting internal cul-de-sacs and gates. They also included a restriction for the development to replicate a traditional grid system by requiring at least one access point to be located on the east, west, and south property boundaries to encourage this grid design. This includes a connecting to First Street Southeast to the south, which connects to the existing neighborhood. Other restrictions proposed are a general statement of conforming to the Ruskin Community Character Guidelines in the Land Development Code and limiting the development to 4 dwelling units per acre. Based on the proposed restrictions, we find that they meet the guidelines and strategies described in the Ruskin Plan and LDC. We also find that the site is appropriate for the proposed RSC 9 zoning and recommend approval of the request. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
No questions at this time, but thank you so much. Planning Commission.
Andrea Papandrew, Planning Commission staff. The site is in the Residential 4 Future Land Use category and within the Ruskin Community Plan and the South Shore Area-Wide Systems Plan. The applicant did submit proposed restrictions after Planning Commission staff filed a report. So due to this, those restrictions were not taken into account during this analysis or recommendation. The Residential 4 category is intended for low-density residential development. The site is proposing residential single-family conventional restricted zoning at a maximum of 4 units per acre with 6,000 square foot lots. The proposed zoning meets the intent of some of the neighbor protection policies, specifically policies 16.1, 16.2, 16.3, 16.8, 16.10, and 16.11. The area is residential in character with public institutional uses to the north. There's also vacant land, agricultural, and common property uses throughout. Further northwest is light commercial. Rezoning to allow single-family residential lots or 6,000 square feet would be consistent with Objective 16 and its policies and Goals 8, 12, and Objective 12-1 of the community design component in the future land use element. Per policy 9.2, developments must meet or exceed the requirements of all land development regulations as established and adopted by Hillsborough County. At the time of uploading or at the time of staff reviewing the report, transportation comments were not yet available and so were not taken into consideration. The site is in the Ruskin Community Plan. Goal 5 states that development should continue and or replicate the traditional grid street pattern. While the Transportation Division included in their comments that they believe the proposed rezoning meets the intent of the Ruskin Community Plan, Planning Commission staff is the entity that ultimately makes a finding of consistent or inconsistent with the comprehensive plan. In this case, staff have reviewed the application and finds it inconsistent with the adopted policy direction. The applicant has stated that they will provide connections along the western boundary to First Street Southwest and along the eastern boundary of 3rd Street Southeast. Internal cul-de-sacs and gates will not be permitted. Staff recognizes that there is no right-of-way further northwest of the site towards 14th Avenue Southeast. However, there is an opportunity to provide a connection north from 2nd Street Southeast to the South Shore Community Resource Center. Additionally, there are up to 4 connections to the south to provide a grid pattern by connecting to 16th Avenue Southwest. While it is currently being used as a drainage ditch, Planning Commission staff have not received any documentation from Hillsborough County staff stating that 16th Avenue Southwest cannot be a viable future roadway connection. The proposed rezoning does not provide two connections to 16th Avenue Southwest to provide the necessary grid pattern. Per policy 16.7, residential neighborhoods should be designed for internal circulation and street stub-outs to connect adjacent neighborhoods. Without additional roadway connections, there is no guarantee that internal circulation will be preserved for the site. Additionally, Goal 4, Objective 4.1, the mobility section, seek to provide safe and convenient connections within communities. Staff recognizes the applicant's willingness to connect east to 3rd Street Southeast. However, since 3rd Street Southeast has not been constructed, a connection on 2nd Street Southeast establishes a grid pattern in the area and provides a connection to the Community Resource Center north of the site. Additionally, a standard rezoning does not require a site plan or allow for conditions of approval for staff to fully evaluate how the grid pattern will be maintained in Ruskin. As mentioned, there is a vacating application associated with this rezoning. Staff found the vacating inconsistent, as well due to the vacating of 2nd Street Southeast, which would not allow the continuation of the grid network, and it would limit the ability to connect neighborhood serving uses. Planning Commission staff maintains its position for this proposed rezoning and finds the lack of connectivity to be inconsistent with several goals, objectives, and policies of the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan. The proposal also does not meet the intent of the South Shore area-wide systems, while provide additional housing opportunities. Not providing a grid pattern does not recognize the preferred development and connectivity patterns of Ruskin. Based upon the above considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed rezoning inconsistent with the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan.
Let me ask you, because it does seem that it points back to the Planning Commission in terms of the questions, so let me delve into that a little bit. You said in your opening remarks that you had not seen the proposed restrictions. At the date of this writing, they weren't finalized.
So Planning Commission staff are obligated to file our reports 12 days before the zoning hearing master per that land development code. So at the time we filed, the restrictions were not sent to us, so they were not included in our analysis.
Okay, understood. Yeah. So the restriction, now that you've seen them, the restriction talks about a connection to the south. I think it's number 5. That talks about connection from the project across 16th Avenue Southwest at 1st Street Southeast to connect to the existing 1st Street Southeast, which I believe that is a connection to the south. Would you agree? If you see the county staff report, I don't know if you have a copy of it.
I believe they are proposing one to the south.
Yes.
However, we don't change our finding after we file. So if
Okay.
the applicant would like to continue, we're happy to review that.
Understood. All right. And then the connection to the north that's suggested in the Planning Commission staff report regarding that resource center.
Mm-hmm.
And you saw the pictures. And so if you could just elaborate on Ms. Corbett's argument that that's not viable at this point for connection for a project of this type.
So, I mean, we have multiple policies in the comprehensive plan on connectivity and connecting to our community resources. And not providing that connection seemed like a missed opportunity that would not be consistent with our policy direction.
Okay. And is it fair to say that the connectivity issue is the sole reason that the Planning Commission is not
Yes.
recommending
The
approval?
connectivity issue, because there is strong language in the Ruskin Community Plan.
Okay, understood. Thank you for that. I appreciate the clarification. All right, is there anyone in the room or online that would like to speak in support? Anyone in favor? Seeing no one, anyone in opposition to this request? Seeing no one? Ms. Heinrich, anything else?
No, ma'am.
All right, Ms. Corbett, you have 5 minutes for rebuttal if you'd like.
Cami Corbett, again, with Hill Ward Henderson. Just to clarify a couple things in the record, the restrictions were in the record at the time that staff filed their report. The only restriction that was not agreed to at the time was the connection to the south. All of the other required connections to the east and west, the compliance with the Ruskin Community Design Standards with respect to lot sizes and lot widths, those were all in the record ahead of time. And part of the reason why we didn't agree to continue or try to work further with the Planning Commission is their insistence on the connection to the north at 2nd Street Southeast and through that Community Resource Center. So I don't think there was anything that we were going to do to, if their position is they're objecting to the vacating and therefore the rezoning because of the lack of interconnectivity to that resource center, that is simply not something that's practicable to do right now. Thank you. Or in the near future.
All right, thank you so much. Then with that, we'll close rezoning 23-0714 and go to the next case.
Our next item is item C2, standard rezoning 23-0902. The applicant is requesting to rezone property from AS1 to RSC6. Michelle Montalbano with Development Services will provide staff findings after the applicant's presentation, and I believe they may be virtual.
Yes, I understand the applicant is virtual, is that right?
Noralva, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Hi, good evening.
Good evening. We don't see, is your camera on? We don't see you yet.
I thought I was.
Madam Chair, can I have permission to walk her through turning her camera on?
Of course.
All right, so Noralva, if you'll see the link that I emailed you, you
Okay.
can just click on the green button in that email.
Okay, I see. Okay. Showing, okay.
For anybody watching, if you do participate virtually in this hearing, we do require that you be on camera to verify that it is you and not someone else. So it is a county requirement. That's why we're waiting.
Okay, it's going. It's letting me in. One moment. Yes. Okay. Okay, it should let me in. Oh boy.
Can you tell me what's on the screen?
It's meeting number.
Okay, is it asking for the meeting access code?
It just says meeting number or URL.
Ms. Santos, we need to move along, but let me do this. Let me hold your application and we'll take one. We'll take the next application up and then we'll come back to you and give you a moment to work out the technical issues. Would that be okay?
Okay.
All
Yes,
right, so,
that's fine. Thank you.
yes, absolutely. So let's hold application 23-0902 and go to the next case.
Our next item is standard rezoning 24-0042. The applicant is requesting to rezone property from ASC1 to RSC6. Carol Ann Peddle with Development Services will provide staff findings after the applicant's presentation.
Thank you, Michelle. Good evening, Madam Hearing Officer. I have some handouts that I need to pass out. It was attachment 6 that should be in the record, and for some reason it wasn't there. So in discussion with staff today, I just wanted to submit this in the record so it corresponds to the narrative.
Okay.
I'm not sure I'm in shape for this one. Just give it an off. Anybody needs an extra one? You have one?
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Anybody else need a copy? Good evening again. Joe Moretta, Gardner Brewer Hudson, 400 North Ashley for the record. Madam Hearing Officer, I'm here to speak to rezoning 24-0042. This is a rezoning request located on the northeast corner of Telfair Road and Mook Street in Brandon. The total area of the rezoning is approximately 1.72 acres. It's comprised of two folios, 68568.000, which is 511 Telfair Road, and 68568.0050, which is 501 Telfair Road. The purpose is to remedy an error that occurred in 1992 during the building construction permitting. The error made the total area of the site non-conforming and resulted in the construction of a single-family dwelling. As noted in the handout that I just handed, there's a confirmation there that there was actually a staff error made in 1992, and it notes that the staff issued a valid building permit on a separate non-conforming lot. When our client came through to try to get a zoning verification for this several months ago, the current staff position is that the subject lots do not meet the criteria for legal non-conforming lot. The staff did not take the previous county permitting action into consideration because of the error, and the county staff recognizes the subject property as two single-family homes on one lot, and the compliance measures would require rezoning and subdivision or demolition. The resulting development basically separated this into two parcels, both of them are non-conforming. The north parcel, which is 511 Telfair, is 0.85 acres. It's a separate non-conforming lot and includes a single-family home, one-story, and a metal garage. The south parcel is also a separate non-conforming lot, and it's 0.86 of an acre, and it has a single-family home. This single-family home is the home that was actually permitted in error. This request is a remedial rezoning for RSC 6. The rezoning will achieve the dimensional setback, the lot area, and the standards needed for compliance. It will facilitate a subdivision to recognize the two homes on two legal lots. The current ASC 1, when it was reviewed then and as it exists now, it requires 1 acre per lot. The existing lots, both of them, are approximately 0.85 and 0.86 acres. The front yard of the ASC 1 requires 50 feet, and the southern lot is approximately 44.88 feet from the right-of-way, which would be also not achievable. The side yard is 15 feet in ASC 1, which would require 30 feet between structures on the side, and between the north and south lot, there's only 21 feet. Also, the width on the south, actually both lots, is insufficient. The ASC 1 requires 150 feet, and the south lot is 99.93. The north lot's a little bit larger, but they still would both fall short of the 150. The RSC 6 will provide the standards needed for the compliance. It would allow the half-acre lot on septic. It would allow the front yard measurement of 25 feet, a side yard measurement of 7.5 feet, and a width of 70. And our property on both these lots would exceed these requirements and move the project towards compliance. In terms of the rezoning request and the enabling future land use category, the project is located in the urban service area. It's located within a C of Res 6, which is 6 dwelling units per acre. To the south of the site is Res 9, which is even a more intense district, which allows 9 units per acre. Single family is proposed next to single family, so there's no compatibility issue. The area as a whole is planned for equal or higher densities. The comp plan also includes policy 1.2, which anticipate and encourages directing density in the urban service area as it speaks to achieving a minimum density to avoid underutilization of the plan in the urban area.
There's a whole host of policies that the Planning Commission also cited in support of this request, but we thought that that was one of the most critical ones. We believe the RSC 6 zoning will further the intent of the comp plan. It's an appropriate implementing rezoning in this case, as the location of the urban service area is within two very intense comp plan categories, and it's also compatible with the surrounding area as a proposals for a residential district for single family, and our project is single family next to single family. In terms of the zoning and compatibility, this project's been in the same configuration for approximately 31 years. It was permitted this way in 1992. It exists this way now. The rezoning will not introduce any new visual change to the area. The single-family proposal, again, is compatible with surrounding single-family uses. To the north of the site is the same zoning, RSC6. To the west is RSC6, same zoning. To the south of the site is RSC6. To the east is an ASC1, which is a holdout in the area. And to the southeast of the area is also RDC12, which is 12 units an acre. So it's in a pretty intense zoning area, although the client pretty much intends to keep this site configured as it is now. In terms of the staff analysis, the rezoning application has been determined consistent by the Planning Commission staff, and it's also been determined approvable by Development Services staff. I'm available if you have any other questions, but that pretty much concludes our presentation for the moment, and that concludes the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me just ask you a quick question, just to make sure I understand. So 2 lots, a northern lot and a southern lot. The northern lot, both lots are, don't meet the 1 acre ASC1 standard, right?
Correct.
And the northern lot was built when? When was that developed?
I believe it was in the 60s.
I see. And so then someone came in for the southern lot in the 90s, right?
The
1998?
family owned both the parcels. They came in, they basically created another folio, went through the building permit process, and all the permits were issued. The home was habitable. So several years later, the property goes into a trust. Family wants to potentially sell it. They come to the county and they find out that there's an issue, that the property isn't considered compliant with the zoning. There's no subdivision approval. They have building approval, but for whatever reason, I don't know, how it was viewed in 1992, whether or not they were looking at subdivision, whatever reason, it was not required. The folios were recognized and the permits were issued, and both homes exist now. So now you have 2 homes on, effectively, in the eyes of the county, 1 lot.
So they're 2 separate, I think that's where I'm trying to get to. So each lot has its own folio and
Correct.
did back, as long as anyone can remember, the southern lot, that property owner did not create that lot. It existed when they went to pull their building permit in the 90s.
My understanding is they created it as part of that building permit process. So when they went in, they had that in place.
I see.
The county reviewed that, issued permits based on that folio, that acreage, that zoning at the time. I'm not exactly sure. I could look back and to see when they actually cut it, but everybody was aware at the time that that lot was cut. I believe the lot was cut maybe in 90, looking back, because when we were looking through this, we were looking for that magic date of 1989. I believe it was July something in 1989, and it wasn't cut before that. So that's where the legal nonconformity conversation kind of stopped at that point. I'm not sure what the staff looked at in 1992. No one really is sure what they looked at in 1992. All we know is we have 2 folios, 2 homes, and a zoning district that it doesn't match. So the purpose of this is just to comply that and then move on.
And there's no redevelopment opportunity here. This is just to move the line so that the structures are on each their own lot.
At this point, there's no redevelopment. They're not seeking this to do a redevelopment. Right now, both homes are on septic. They plan to keep it that way. And we've had discussions with the county, and the county's willing to look at that as a vested piece of it. I know that when we were looking at what it would cost to connect to the lines, that I believe they would have to do some extensive work to get lines there to allow 7,000 square foot lots. And I'm not sure what the geometry would give away, in terms of lot numbers. Certainly not a whole lot. But at this point, their plans are to just get recognized for what they have.
Understood. All right, thank you so much. If you could please sign in with the clerk's office.
Thank you.
Development Services. Good evening.
Good evening. Carolyn Peddle, Development Services, Standard Rezoning 240042. The applicant is proposing to rezone the 2 subject parcels from ASC1 to RSC6 in order to reconfigure the lot lines to remedy 2 non-conforming lots. Through the lot line configuration, the applicant would be able to ensure that the metal storage structure that is located on the shared property line would be located on property. Oh, sorry, thank you. The properties associated with 240042 have a future land use designation R6 as well as all surrounding properties. The immediate adjacent properties are zoned ASC1 and RSC6. The site is surrounded by a mixture of residential uses with various lot sizes. Based on the above consideration, staff finds the proposed RSC6 zoning districts is compatible with the existing zoning districts and development pattern in the area. Therefore, staff find it approvable. I'm available for any questions you have.
None at this time, but thank you so much. Planning Commission.
Andrea Papandrew, Planning Commission staff. Site is in the residential 6 future land use category and is within the Brandon Community Plan. The proposal meets the intent of Objective 1 and Policy 1.4 of the future land use element by providing residential use within the urban service area where 80% of future growth is to be directed. The proposal meets the compatibility requirements of Policy 1.4 as the area contains a similar range of residential uses. Single-family residential surrounds the site to the north, east, and west. To the south, across Mook Street, are multifamily residences and a CSX transportation right-of-way. Further south of the site is a mix of single-family, agricultural, a vacant lot, public institutional, and a high school. Per the narrative on October 10th, 2023 from the applicant, the proposed will provide development standards to accommodate compliance for the existing development approved in the previous building permits. The proposed is consistent with a maximum density and allowable uses under Residential 6 and is consistent with Objective 8 and Policy 8.1. The applicant meets Objective 9 and Policy 9.2, which requires that all development proposals meet or exceed all local, state, and federal land development regulations. The proposed also meets the intent of Objective 16, Policies 16.1, 16.2, 16.3, and 16.10 that require new development to be compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. Goal 12 and Objective 12-1 of the community design component require new developments to recognize the existing community and be designed to be compatible with the predominant character of the surrounding area. In this case, the surrounding land use pattern is mostly single family, and the proposed residential use complements that. The site is in the suburban character district, the Brandon Community Plan, and meets the intent of the plan, which includes primarily residential design for single family attached, and townhomes. And there's an existing sidewalk on Mook Street and Telfair Road, and this meets the sidewalk requirements in the plan as well. Based upon the above considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed rezoning consistent with the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Is there anyone in the audience or online that would like to speak in support? Anyone in favor? Seeing no one, anyone in opposition to this request? Yes, sir. Come forward to the podium. While he's coming forward, is there anyone else either in the room or online that would like to speak in opposition?
I am John Pohl. I am online.
Okay, so we have 2 people, so that's 15 minutes, so it's 7.5 minutes apiece. Feel free not to take that if you'd like, if you can shorten it up, but we're willing to hear whatever testimony you have. Let's go with the gentleman in the room. Good evening.
Okay, my name is Michael Lee Grandy. I live at 606 Telfair Road in Limona, and I've lived there since 1960. And I believe this is incompatible with the zoning in the area. I believe that ASC 1 is more compatible. The landowners, I'm a commercial beekeeper, and I live within 200 feet of that proposed change, and I know what RSC 6 brings. It brings lawsuits. That's what it brings. Not to mention runoff, water going into the pond. There's a pond there. And in 1983, the water level came up within 20 feet of a man's home on the east side of that pond. And also, I talked to him today about that, and he's against it. His name is Val Blatney. And I talked to another lady on the north side of the pond that's directly across the pond from the property that's trying to be rezoned, and her name is Lydia Richards. And she strongly opposes it. She's 90 years old, and I'm speaking in her behalf, her and Mr. Blatney.
Let me ask you a question, sir. I did see your letter in the record that you wrote in opposition. You said you're about 200 feet from this property?
Within 200 feet of that area.
Well,
I'm a commercial beekeeper.
Okay, thank you. Let me ask you about the applicant's representative that testified and said that there are two lots. One has a home built from the 1960s, and the other was built around the early 1990s. You're familiar with that?
Yes, ma'am, I used to keep bees on that property.
Okay. And he also testified that there are no plans to change what's on the property. This is just to correct a zoning lot issue.
Well, all I know is when they changed the zoning from ASC 1 to RSC 6,
Yes, sir. That's what they're asking for.
ASC 1 to RSC 6, that tells me 6 units to the acre. And between those 2 yards there's about 2 acres. So I see 12 units someday in there, and I don't want to see that.
Okay.
I don't want to see it. And the other neighbors, they don't want to see it.
Understood. All right. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate you coming down. If you could please sign in with the gentleman in the blue shirt. He's with the clerk's office. Thank you so much. All right. We'll go to the gentleman that was online. Good evening.
Hello,
You give us your name and address, please.
my name is John Pole, 619 Telfair Road.
All right. And if you could tell us why you were testifying in opposition.
I'm in opposition because that is going to be trying to rezone it, RSC 6. It was zoned appropriately at the time. And I believe they're trying to lean forward to put duplexes or for their building onto that property. We've already got traffic measures in place for calming. We've got 3 schools, we've got clogged roads, and we've got incompatible sidewalks in place. So, yeah, we don't need any more building. And that would just, I think the owners just bought this property and are trying to lean forward to put duplexes or something in place. We don't need any more building in this area.
All right. Does that conclude your comments?
It does.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you calling in and participating. All right. So seeing no one else in opposition, we'll close that portion of the hearing, and we'll go back to Development Services. Ms. Heinrich, anything else?
No, ma'am.
All right. Mr. Moretta, you have 5 minutes for rebuttal.
Thank you, Madam Hearing Officer. I'll just take it in basically 2 pieces. In terms of the RSC 6, I believe the zoning, it's clear that the zoning itself is compatible with the zoning pattern of the area. But in terms of the existing development on our site and how it compares, particularly against some of the people that may be in opposition, for example, like Mr. Grande, and looking at the record, his property is approximately 0.56 of an acre. Both of these parcels exceed that acreage. So in terms of being compatible, our client site will exceed the lot size where he currently resides now. And I can submit that in the record if you'd like in terms of his property. In terms of duplexes, the zoning district does not allow the duplexes. In terms of any runoff, the site right now is configured with 2 homes. So that site is not going to change any of the runoff conditions in the area. If for some reason in the future, far in the future, if somebody did develop it, at that point in time, if they developed it as a subdivision, they would be required to go through subdivision review and make certain type of improvements to keep the drainage the same as it is now. So they would not be able to make that situation worse in the area. They would have to keep the runoff ratios the same. So aside from that, the acreage is not over 2 acres, it's 1.72. So we believe our client site is consistent and compatible with the area. We have all staff approvals. Single family is consistent with single family. Can't see any reason why it would not be compatible from a land use perspective, from a zoning perspective. It furthers the intent of the comprehensive plan. So we believe this is a solid case, and we hope we would have your support on this. I'm available if you have any questions.
No further questions. Thank you so much. Then with that, we'll close rezoning 24-0042, and we'll go back to the case. All right, it seems that we have her now. We'll go back to that case. Ms. Heinrich, if you could just introduce it again, just for the record.
Sure. This is standard application 23-0902, and the applicant's requesting to zone property from AS1 to RSC6.
All right, thank you so much. All right, is the applicant available? Good evening.
Yes. Good evening. Yes, I'm not Alba Santos.
Ah, we see you. Oh, I saw you. There you go.
Finally, yes.
Go ahead, if you could give us your address, please.
Yes, my address is 102 9th Street, Waimama, Florida, 33598.
Okay, and if you could just tell us a little bit about the reasons for your rezoning request.
Yes, I live in a property of 1.61 acre, and I want to divide the property into two. I want to build my house in the second lot. I do have an existing mobile home in the front part of the land. So I'm hoping I can get approved to build my home.
All right, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Can we go now to development services? Good evening.
Good evening. This is Michelle from Development Services, Michelle Montalbano. The request is to rezone approximately 1.61 acre property from AS1 to RSC6. The RSC6 zoning district requires a minimum lot size of 7,000 square feet, while the AS1 district requires a minimum of 1 acre. The subject site is located in a residential area in Umamama along 9th Street. The surrounding area consists of single-family residential, institutional, and agricultural uses. The abutting properties to the north are occupied by single-family conventional residences zoned in a planned development. To the south is a single-family conventional home in the RSC2 district with a mobile home overlay. Abutting the subject property to the east is a vacant property zoned for a planned development, allowing religious uses, parks, single-family homes, and community residential homes. To the east across 9th Street are lots zoned AS1, occupied by mobile homes and single-family conventional residences. Rezoning the site from AS1 to RSC6 would keep the property consistent with the existing and emerging development patterns in the area. Development Services finds this request approvable. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Planning Commission.
Andrea Papandrew, Planning Commission staff. The site is in the Residential 6 Future Land Use category and within the Wamama Village Community Plan and the South Shore Area-Wide Systems Plan. The site is in the urban service area where 80% of the county's growth is to be directed. The site is proposing compatible growth within the urban service area, and the request is consistent with Comprehensive Plan Policy 1.4. The applicant is proposing to rezone the site to allow for residential development. The site is within the Residential 6 Future Land Use category, which surrounds the property to the east, west, and south. Wamama Village Residential 2 exists to the north. The proposed change is compatible with the existing development pattern of the surrounding area due to existing single-family homes to the north, west, southwest, and further south along 9th Street. The rezoning would complement the residential development pattern for the area and is consistent with Future Land Use Element Objective 16 and Policies 16.1, 16.2, 16.3, 16.5, 16.8, and 16.10. The site is within the limits of the Wamama Village Community Plan, specifically within the downtown center area designated on the Wamama downtown boundary map. According to the Wamama Village Community Plan's downtown center, higher density residential is encouraged as it serves as a transition of uses between downtown residential, suburban residential neighborhoods, and Main Street uses. The site is also within the South Shore Area-Wide Systems Plan, which seeks to increase housing opportunities for all income groups. A rezoning to RSC6 is consistent with the vision of both plans. Based upon the above considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed rezoning consistent with the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Is there anyone in the room or online that would like to speak in support? Anyone in favor? Seeing no one. Anyone in opposition? No one. Ms. Heinrich, anything else?
No, ma'am.
All right. We'll go back to the applicant who has the last word if they'd like it. Ma'am, anything else?
No, just I appreciate your time, and hopefully I can get approved.
All right. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. With that, we'll close rezoning 23-0902 and go to the next case.
Our next item is item C4, standard rezoning 24-0065. The The applicant is requesting to rezone property from BPO to CG restricted. Isis Brown with Development Services will provide staff findings after the applicant's presentation, and I believe the applicant is attending virtually.
Okay. That would be Mr. Kovacs, I believe, yes?
So actually, I will, all right. So actually, Caroline Marsan, Tract Engineering, Mr. Kovacs is also present. 5137 South Lakeland Boulevard, Suite 3, Lakeland, Florida, 33813.
Okay,
And
thank you.
I may share my screen. So can you guys see that okay, or?
I can.
Okay, perfect. So I'm here to present on behalf of Tract Engineering, Posh Salon Suites, as previously stated, RZ-0065 in Lithia, Florida. Again, as previously stated, so we're requesting the rezoning of a previously referenced property in Brandon. Current zoning is BPO, future land leases are 6. We're requesting for a GC-R for the purpose of, so we're trying to build a salon that's going to provide services such as hairdressers, aesthetic professionals, estheticians, chiropractors, things along those lines. They're all rentable suites. Wastewater and water will be connected through Hillsborough County Utilities. So the project is currently surrounded, and I'll point it right here, currently surrounded by other commercial areas. A pet care business is on the north side of the project. The Walmart is right there, along with some food establishments. Again, this will be just a simple commercial plaza. It is adjacent to Retention Pond, which will also service the project. It's at the intersection of East Lumpston and Lithia Pinecrest Road. No wetlands were found within the parcel limits, and the project, as recommended by staff, has been found to be compatible with the surrounding land uses. Again, here's a slight site plan. So if you have any questions, please defer to the engineer on record, Danny Kovacs.
All right, if you could just go over quickly that you have the slide up now, the waiver you're requesting to locational criteria, the reasons for that.
Yes. Hi, Danny Kovacs, 5137 South Lincoln Drive as well. Again, as Caroline stated, this particular site is adjacent to East Lumpston and Lithia Pinecrest. We're roughly about 940 feet from the intersection. We're very close, so we're just touching the edge of the limits. Caroline did a great job of pointing out the surrounding land uses that are within the limits of our property. So one of the big things that staff looked at when we discussed the location criteria was how close we are to residential, as that's kind of the intent was we want to make sure that this use is going to actually flow with the current land uses and the current businesses that are operating today. So as the slide states, we're requesting a waiver from the 900-foot location criteria required in Hillsborough County. The site is very close to meeting the requirements, roughly 940 feet from East Lumpston. The site is not directly adjacent to any residential property, and the site's neighboring business, as Caroline pointed out, are gas stations, a donut shop, retailers. There's even a Walmart pretty close to across the street from this particular site. And based on the physical surroundings, ourselves and staff has seen this to meet the intent of the location criteria.
All right, thank you. And sir, just for the record, could you give us your name and address just to make sure we have it?
Sure, it's Daniel Kovacs. I'm the engineer of record for the site, and same address, 5137 South Lakeland Drive.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
No
and
questions.
We'll stay for any questions.
Thank you so much. And we'll go to Development Services. Okay. Good evening.
Good evening, Isis Brown, Hillsborough County Development Services, standard rezone 24-0065. The request is to rezone an existing BPO lot of approximately 0.99 acres in Brandon to commercial general restricted. The site is located with a mixture of uses: commercial, general, commercial neighborhood, agricultural, and single-family residential uses. The surrounding uses include an animal medical office to the immediate north, the roadway to South Lithia Pinecrest Road to the immediate east, and retail with the Walmart, neighborhood Walmart on the opposite side of the street. To the south, we have some additional BPO and ags, and that's to the west as well. The site does not meet commercial locational criteria. To address the lot's irregular shape, transition, compatibility concerns, and transportation access concerns, the applicant has proposed the following restriction. The subject site will be limited to a hair salon establishment, which also may provide related services such as, but not limited to, cosmetic treatment, nail services, and esthetician services. Staff finds that the request is consistent and compatible with the existing and emerging zoning development pattern along both the northeastern and southwestern portion of South Lithia Pinecrest Road. The property's frontage is along the Lithia's Pinecrest Road. To the south, the parcel abuts subject parcels whose frontage is also along Lithia Pinecrest Road with a PD 76-0171, which is also BPO. Based on the above consideration, staff finds that the request is approvable with the applicant's proposed restrictions listed previously.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Planning Commission.
Andrea Pappendrew, Planning Commission staff. Site is within the residential 6 future land use category and is within the Brandon Community Plan. The site is mainly surrounded by light commercial uses, including a large shopping plaza across the street to the east. There is a veterinary clinic to the north, a Hillsborough County-owned retention area to the west, and offices to the south. The proposal is consistent with Objective 8 and Policy 8.1, as the use that the rezoning would be restricted to is consistent with the suburban scale neighborhood commercial uses intended for the residential 6 future land use category. The proposed modification meets the intent of Objective 16 and Policies 16.1, 16.2, 16.3, and 16.5. This site is located on an arterial roadway, which is appropriate for higher intensity uses. There are no residential uses immediately adjacent to the site, and a large retention area will serve as a buffer from the residential uses further west. The proposed has operating characteristics that are less intense than the full range of commercial general uses and serves as a gradual transition in intensity between the uses closest to the intersection and the uses further north on Lithia Pinecrest Road. The site does not meet commercial locational criteria per Objective 22. 75% of the site's frontage is not within 900 linear feet from the closest qualifying intersection of Lithia Pinecrest Road and north of Lumsden Road East. The applicant has submitted a waiver request which describes that the site is just outside the node and that there are no residential uses directly adjacent. The request also states that there are neighboring businesses such as gas stations, a donut shop, retailers such as Walmart, and an existing hair salon which are similar in nature to the proposed use. Based on the surrounding uses and the operating characteristics of the proposed, Planning Commission staff recommends that the Board of County Commissioners grants a waiver to the commercial locational criteria. The proposed rezoning meets the intent of the Brandon Community Plan. The site is in the suburban character district, in which it describes that mixed uses are encouraged at certain intersections. Although the site does not meet commercial locational criteria, it is very close to the qualified intersection, and the proposed use is compatible with the character of existing land uses. Based upon the above considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed rezoning consistent with the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan, subject to the restriction proposed by the Development Services Department.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your testimony. Is there anyone in the room or online that would like to speak in support? Anyone in favor? Seeing no one, anyone in opposition to this request? No one. Ms. Heinrich, anything else?
Michelle Heinrich, Development Services. Because we don't have an applicant representative for Mr. Kovacs, but he is present tonight, if he could just online confirm that he consents to the Onyx Engineering making their presentation on his behalf.
Okay. Mr. Kovacs, you understand the request because there's no agent authorization form that has Ms. Marsan's name on it. You could just say that you're designating her as your representative.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I'm designating Caroline Marsan as my representative on behalf of our client.
All right. Is that sufficient, Ms. Heinrich? Perfect. Thank
Yes,
you so
ma'am.
much. All right, then Mr. Kovacs or Ms. Marsan, you have the last word if you'd like it.
I think we're good.
All right, thank you so much, I appreciate it. Then with that, we'll close rezoning 24-0065 and go to the next case.
Our next application is item D1, PD 23-0472. The applicant is requesting to rezone property from RSC 6 to planned development. Sam Ball with Development Services will provide staff findings after the applicant's presentation. And also to bring to your attention, for this item, there is a related comprehensive plan amendment. Therefore, this rezoning will be heard with that comprehensive plan amendment on February 1st, 2024, in the boardroom at 6 p.m.
All right, thank you for that. Is the applicant here? Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Hearing Officer, staff, and citizens who are here for this case. Todd Pressman, 200 2nd Avenue South, number 451 in St. Petersburg, for RSZ 230472, which is 9.81 acres, currently vacant. The issue tonight is RSC 6 to PD. The request is for single-family homes, 52, and as Ms. Heinrich has indicated, there's companion CPA 2308. Future land use categories are PQP and Res 4 to Res 6 for that companion. We're located in the general town and country area. Site is noted here. Parcels under consideration by the property appraiser are these two parcels. You'll note Soccer Avenue is to the south with the county's soccer fields and at Arman Road. Zoning map shows RSC 6, RSC 9. Future land use map shows it in the purple as R4 and PQP. PQP is to the south, which is the soccer fields. There's R20 and R6 a little bit further away. Development Services, Planning Commission, Transportation all support the request. A little history, Hearing Officer. We started quite some time ago with 3 parcels as laid out here, and we are 2 parcels now. The result of that is because at the Planning Commission hearing, we had a large number of citizens, quite a large number, and it was apparent at that time that we were asking for a lot that citizens wouldn't be very happy with and opposed. So we radically changed the plan. So prior was proposed 432 multifamily units, as you can see laid out here in those 3 parcels. We've excised the large parcel, as you can see here on the east. And again, clarifying, we've X'd out the 31.33 acres, which was on the east. And this project are only the 2 parcels to the west, as shown, again, parcels under consideration here. So I want to make it very clear that we went through a lot of revisions, a lot of changes to make this request not only change from multifamily, but to single family. We heard 2 main messages from citizens, which was multifamily was not desired and too dense, and single family would be less dense and more acceptable. So now it's a 52 single family home, as you can see laid out on the PD plan. There's a water feature that runs to the north, and access is on Arman Drive with a cul-de-sac at the east end. Planning Commission notes that we're mainly surrounded by RSC 6, includes appropriate setbacks and buffers. Density and lot sizes are reflective of the surrounding neighborhoods. There's an official internal circulation compatible with the surrounding development and meets the intent of the Town and Country Community Plan. Development Services note that single-family residential properties in the vicinity are predominantly zoned RSC 6 and are separated by a public and private right-of-way in that stream element or water feature they showed you. They find the request compatible. And the site, as proposed, is developed at 5.3 units per acre. Transportation notes that trips are potentially generated under the existing proposed zoning designations, utilizing the generalized worst-case scenario. So the proposed zoning would generally result in a decrease of trips potentially generated at minus 85 average daily trips, as quoted in the county transportation report. So again, 52 single-family homes. And I wanted to note that the access being on Arman Drive, when I spoke with my transportation expert today, she did indicate to me that the worst case scenario was putting all the traffic on Berry Road. But transportation-wise is that to the north, the access to the site on Arman Drive is to the north and to the south. So there's access to Berry to get out to Hanley. Everybody wants to pretty much get out to Hanley. If you go to the south from the access point to subdivision, there's West Cluster and Armand Drive also. So there's two other options for getting to Hanley Road. And again, the worst case scenario of the submitted transportation report was all traffic going on Berry. So even in that case, it still was an acceptable transportation result. I do want to note that some concerns have been raised about the site being a landfill, and staff, I'm speaking for staff, but they do have an additional condition to put into the record. But I do want to note that in the agency review comment sheets, the Conservation and Environmental Lands Management, Mr. Kaiser, has indicated or submitted a report that has no comments. And the Environmental Services Division also notes no concerns, and that the site is not located in a wellhead resource protection area, nor a surface water resource protection area, or a potable water wellfield protection area as defined by the Land Development Code. And EPC also has a positive report indicating that there's no wetlands present. I do want to put in the record that there's been a lot of interaction and a signed agreement with the county by the property owner, which stipulates site access, and also submitting into the record a extensive report that shows that the site is being monitored for potential issues of the landfill, which, as we're aware, there aren't any, and that the county is moving forward with review and continue monitoring the site as it moves forward. But the condition by the staff ensures that the proper officers of the county, which would be the director's authorization for construction, a development modification of historic waste-filled area, would be issued by EPC Waste Division. So if I may submit these in the record, please.
Absolutely.
Where am I doing that today?
Over with Michael. You can submit them to him. Thank you.
So in summary, very clearly, this applicant has drastically and substantially changed and modified this application in a direct result of citizens' concerns. We've moved forward to earn all staff recommendations and support. We've also changed importantly, the proposed product, which is single-family versus multifamily. So with that, we'll be happy to answer any questions.
None at this time, but thank you.
Thank you.
You could please sign in. All right, Development Services. Good evening.
Good evening. Sam Ball with Hillsborough County Development Services. The applicant is requesting to rezone an undeveloped property from RSC 6 to planned development in order to allow for the development of a single-family subdivision with 52 lots, proposed density of 5.3 dwellings per acre. The subject property covers 9.1 acres and is located within the Town and Country Community Plan area at the northeast corner of Soccer Avenue and Armand Drive. The subject property adjoins RSC 6 zoned properties on all sides. The primary uses in the area include single-family residential, recreation, and education. The development pattern in the area consists of public lands to the north and east that are used for stormwater management. The properties to the north of these public lands are developed for single-family use. The properties to the west of Armand Drive are developed for single-family residence. And to the immediate south, the properties to the south of Soccer Avenue are developed as a Morgan Woods Elementary School and Schimberg Park and Sports Complex. The Town and Country Greenway multi-use path is located approximately 1,250 feet south of the subject property. The property is currently zoned to allow for single-family development on lots with at least 7,000 square feet and a maximum height of 35 feet. If PD 23472 is approved, the property would be allowed up to 52 single-family detached dwellings with a minimum lot size of 4,739 square feet and a maximum building height of 20 feet. The westward orientation of the most western lots, which would be developed with houses facing towards the neighborhood, would help integrate the new subdivision into the existing single-family development in the area. The applicant is not requesting waivers, variations, or design exceptions. Based on the zoning, land use, development pattern of the properties in the area and the proposed development plan, its design features, staff finds the proposed development will have minimal impact on the properties in the vicinity and finds the request compatible with the surrounding development. Staff finds the request approvable subject to conditions. That concludes my presentation. Available if you have any questions.
I have two questions. One pertains to the last sentence of condition number 12 regarding a proposed fence that's shown in a wetland setback area. And it says that it'll require a variance to be approved by a land use hearing officer. I just want to clarify, that's not a part of this application. That would be a future application to the land use hearing officer for that variance. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
That was issued by Natural Resources.
Okay, I just want to confirm because that's in the actual condition. So I just want to make sure that that's not a part of this approval.
That's correct.
But that would be a future application. And then secondly, I've read the numerous letters in the record in opposition to this. And a lot of them are based on concerns that this property was formerly a landfill. And so if you could help me with what are the requirements in terms of reclamation or county regulations that would be applicable to that?
Okay. Well, there's a condition of approval that we're intending to add to the report. I have a copy of that if you'd like it.
I would. I was not aware of that.
Okay. Well, we just,
Madam Hearing Officer?
Yeah, go ahead.
Also, we have online available Jeff Greenwell, who is the Environmental Science Manager. If you have any general questions that he may be able to answer, because I don't believe myself or Sam would know the process in regards to the landfill closing.
Well, and let me just read this real quick because I wasn't aware of this condition. So is the condition, Mr. Ball, prior to site development approval, any development within the boundaries of the historic solid waste disposal areas will require the obtainment of a director's authorization for construction on or development or modification of a historic solid waste filled area issued by EPC's Waste Division. Is that the proposed condition?
yes, ma'am.
Okay. And if we could then go to the staff person that might be able to answer, to clarify what would be required.
Sure, that would be Jeff Greenwell, who is available online.
All right. Good evening, Mr. Greenwell. How are you?
Good evening. How are you? I'm well. Yeah, apparently I have two different groups in Environmental Services Division that provide comment, and somehow our solid waste comments, there must have been some confusion. So the wellhead and surface water protection comments also came out of my group, but there were also some other comments associated with the landfill that do not appear to have made it in. So the process is, as was discussed, it would be a director's authorization. So the director of EPC would be signing it. It would come up through the solid waste division. In addition, they would need approval from the Department of Environmental Protection, because the Department of Environmental Protection would see this as a waste cleanup site. Specific to environmental services concerns, we've had a stable, non-migrating contaminated groundwater plume there for a little over a decade. And the concern would be, in part, that disturbance of any groundwater associated with dewatering and building here, as well as just general construction, could create that plume to migrate again, and we don't want to have that happen. The other concern that environmental would have is that we have a methane gas problem anywhere we've seen a slab on grade put on top of this landfill. So we would prefer to see, not only through that director's authorization, the removal of any solid waste within these two parcels. I believe there are about 8 trenches here that were installed between 1964 and 1970. Not sure how much waste that would be at this point. Most of that would have decomposed, but there's clearly still some waste there. A lot of this waste came out of Drew Park at the time, which is an industrial area, which is why we see that groundwater contamination with its organic volatiles.
Okay, thank you for that. And let me just follow up and ask, and just make sure I understand. So those permits, those authorizations through EPC and solid waste, all of that would have to be permitted and approved before this project could go forward to turn any dirt as a subdivision. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you for that. I appreciate that clarification. All right, then with that, let's go to the Planning Commission.
Andrea Papandrew, Planning Commission staff. The site is in the public, quasi-public, and the residential 4 future land use categories and is located within the town and country community plan. Surrounding uses include single-family residential, a public school, and a park is located immediately south. The Veterans Expressway is to the east. To the west are townhome and condo developments. Additionally, to the south is a town and country greenway which runs east to west. The site is in the urban service area and per objective 1 of the future land use element, where 80% of the county's growth is to be directed. Policy 1.4 requires all new developments to be compatible with the surrounding area. The proposed density in the residential 6 future land use designation is compatible with existing character of development in the area. The site is surrounded by residential 4 to the north, east, and west. Public quasi-public is located to the south. Residential 6 is located further southeast of the site, and residential 20 is located further northwest and southwest of the site. The area mainly contains single-family residential uses. The proposal is consistent with policy 1.2 as it meets the minimum density expected, which is at least 44 units. The proposed rezoning meets the intent of objective 16 in policies 16.1, 16.2, 16.3, 16.7, 16.8, 16.10, 16.11, and 17.7. Proposal includes appropriate setbacks and buffers, and the stormwater retention area at the east end of the site serves as a buffer from the developments to the north. The proposed density and lot sizes are reflective of the surrounding neighborhoods. At the time of writing this report, there were no transportation review section comments and optics, and therefore was not a part of the Planning Commission staff analysis. Objective 12-1 and policy 12-1.4 of the community design component discuss how new development shall be compatible with established character of the surrounding area. Development pattern and character of this area is mainly single-family residential and public institutional uses, and the proposed residential use is compatible. The proposed meets the intent of the town and country community plan. Although the plan discourages cul-de-sacs, the proposed is adjacent to Soccer Avenue, which is a private driveway for the public park and not able to be connected. However, the request includes pedestrian access from the cul-de-sac to Soccer Avenue, which promotes the community plan goal of shared access and connections. Based upon the above considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed plan development consistent with the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan, subject to the approval of HCCPA 23-08 by the Board of County Commissioners and conditions proposed by the Development Services Department.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Is there anyone in the room or online that would like to speak in support? Anyone in favor? Seeing no one. Anyone in opposition? All right, so this is where we count hands and we try to divide the 15 minutes. Keep your hand up. Let me ask if there's anyone online that would like to speak in opposition. Anyone online?
Yes, there's one person online.
One person. Okay, so raise your hands high so we can get a good count. I see 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? So that's 8. So that would be, we can say 2 minutes. 2 minutes apiece would be 16 minutes. We'll extend it just a little bit to try to make it fair. If someone has already expressed your comments, feel free to just come up and put your name and address on the record, and that makes you part of the process and a party of record. But feel free to give us whatever testimony you would like. Does anyone have an order in which they would like to go? Is there anyone who wanted to go first? All right. And if you could all line up, it makes it go a little bit faster. If you could go ahead and get a lineup behind the podium, that would make it speed it up just a little bit. And then at the end, if it's all right with you, we'll take the last person online. Is that Mr. White? Is that you want to speak?
Yes.
All right, and if it's okay with you, we're gonna take the people in the room first, and then you can close. So just hang tight for just a second. Good evening. So Michael, if you could give us 2 minutes, perfect.
Good evening.
sir.
My name is Donald Richardson. I live at 7301 Summer Bridge Drive, Tampa, Florida. I'm here in opposition to the project, and I'll offer some observations. First, no protected or listed species surveys have been done for the property. You mentioned before the fence. There is a fence that is proposed in the buffer that would need a variance. 3, I'd like to read into the record, since I only have 2 minutes, a report by Public Utilities in 2020 that specifically talked about the landfill, and it said, redevelopment would potentially have adverse effects to the environment and human health by disturbing waste-filled areas, initiate groundwater plume migration outside property boundaries, impacts to near-surface water channels, and development of explosive landfill gases under residential structures. It is unquestionable a final order document for the closed Berry landfill needs to be completed shortly. So there is risk to disturbing the grounds for that site, and I'd like to put this into the record.
Absolutely.
Also, in the previous meeting, there were over 400 trips proposed for this development, but no discussion about how those trips affected the quality of Berry Road. That needs to be discussed. Secondly, Berry Road is a cut-through road already. Putting 52 additional homes adds traffic. It also will have another person discuss the school in relation to another 55 homes. There'll be additional traffic that is stacked up at both the Berry and the Hanley Road traffic lights. The southern access point that they talk about is really not feasible for large numbers of exits. And at that point, I'll stop.
All right, thank you. And you're welcome to submit your document into the record if you'd like. Thank you, sir. If you could hold your applause, I'd appreciate it. Good evening.
Hi, I'm Susan Pritchard. I'm the president of the Civic Association in 12 Oaks. Referring to what he just read, that was actually an 86-page letter that was signed by Mr. Greenwell. And it specifically says they shouldn't build there. I mean, in no uncertain terms, it should not be developed. And that was only 3 years ago, after 47 years of being closed. So I'd like to know what in 3 years has changed that says, hey, this is a great place to build houses. It's not. The wildlife displacement, as again, there's been no research. We have lots of gopher tortoises in our area. Those are protected species. They're not supposed to be disturbed. I suspect we have lots of them there. We are also very concerned about the ponds that are on the current plan because of the digging and the disturbing of the land there. My information from the EPC says that they will allow no digging on that property, and yet they have 2 ponds on their current plan. The traffic study is laughable. Our traffic during rush hour on Berry Road between Benjamin and Hanley is insane, and they're going to add more cars to that and expect the traffic to go down, and I don't understand how that could possibly be an accurate assessment. There is not a single person that I have spoken to, and let me tell you, a lot of people call me, that are in favor of this. You know, when you figure out that the land is worthless, let us know. We'll take it off your hands and we'll put it into an open walking park for the residents. But right now, there shouldn't be anything built on that land. There should not be anything built on that land for probably 100 years.
Thank you for coming down. If you could please sign in. Yes, ma'am. Good evening.
Hi. My name's Julie Hurst. I reside at 6743 12 Oaks Boulevard, and I'm representing the 12 Oaks Special District. We are concerned with the safety and traffic, as well as adversely affecting the environment and human health by building on and disturbing the site of a former landfill. Also, the size of the proposed project is a problem. With the 52 proposed units will increase traffic in our neighborhood by at least 100, if not 150 vehicles per day. This would greatly increase traffic on the block where the proposed development is to be sited. 8 additional homes will have driveways accessing Armand Drive, and then the remaining 48 homes in this proposed development will have one ingress, egress, going directly onto Woodkirk Court, which is a dead-end road in our neighborhood. This would be a traffic nightmare for the existing homes along Armand and Woodkirk. This is also a safety concern for school children and pedestrians. The traffic study included in the application I felt was misleading. It never defined when peak hours were, for one thing. It described the subject site as not in the Morgan Woods Elementary School zone, which is interesting. The school is located a block south, and there is a school crossing guard with flashing signs 1 block north on Berry and Armand. The report even described flashing signs along Armand, which should also indicate a school zone. I just want to reiterate, too, that Berry Road is extremely busy as it is. I would invite you to come out any weekday morning at 7:30 in the morning. The area near Benjamin. Oh,
If you could just
thank
wrap
you.
it up. Thank you for your comments. I really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you. If you could please sign in. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Nancy Hendricks. I live at 7536 Armand Circle, and I have lived there for 35 years. I'm just up the street from Morgan Woods Elementary School and the intersection of Armand and Berry Road. I'm very familiar with the traffic pattern in this area, and I have grave concerns regarding the proposed development on Armand Drive and the impact it will have on the 400-plus students that attend Morgan Woods. The plan to add 50-plus houses at this location with only one means of access and egress poses a great threat to the safety of the children who walk to Morgan Woods, as well as the crossing guard, parents, and bus drivers who drop children off and pick them up, not to mention the faculty and staff of the school. Currently, there is such a high volume on Armand Drive in front of the school in the morning that sometimes the buses have trouble accessing. There's this huge roadblock. Once again, as Julie said, I'm not sure when they did the traffic study that they did not see the backup that occurs not only in front of the school, but at the intersection of Armand and Berry, where there is a four-way stop and a crossing guard. That intersection has a history of people running the stop sign and completely ignoring right-of-way law. We struggle with it all the time in the subdivision. I just believe that this is a dangerous situation for all involved in accessing the school. Traffic will undoubtedly back up at the four-way stop, which is going to impact cars coming from Hanley onto Berry. It's going to impact the Berry Benjamin exit, which is a nightmare now. I can't imagine what the increased traffic is going to cause. I ask for you to consider the protection of the children and the safety of the neighborhood when making your decision. Thank you.
Thank you for coming down. I appreciate it. Yes, sir. Good evening.
Stanley Holmes, 7003 Forest View Court, 12 Oaks. My wife and I purchased a home 45 years ago in 12 Oaks. And at that time, there was a swimming pool located on the property that is being considered here. My son actually took swimming lessons in that pool. After about a year or maybe 2 years, mysteriously the pool was completely torn down, the building was torn down, the pool was filled, and a mound 2 or 3 feet high of dirt was placed over where the swimming pool was. Later found out about the story of the landfill. We don't need another Love Canal or Camp Lejeune situation at 12 Oaks or even greater Town and Country. The risks are just too great. You start moving dirt around that's been settled for 40 years, and all of a sudden, that material in there has to percolate somewhere. It's going to go into the groundwater or the aquifer, or it's going to spread around to the adjacent canal and affect wildlife. And the school right across the street. I mean, give me a break. Thank you.
Thank you for coming down, sir. I appreciate it. Sir, if you could please sign in. Thank you so much. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Pat McKean.
I live at 7016 Oakview Circle. When the 12 Oaks community was built in the 70s, the developers only designed the roads for the amount of traffic that would be created by the original project. The addition of 55-plus homes would stress the local infrastructure and create additional traffic in an area that is already more congested than was originally planned. The land that would be used for this project also currently serves as an area that can absorb excess rainwater, which helps to prevent flooding in the surrounding areas. This excess water that is absorbed filters through to the aquifer instead of adding water to the runoff that would go to stormwater drains. Additional houses in this area would not only increase the risk of flooding, but would also increase the amount of pollution through runoff. I would like this vacant land to be preserved, similar to the Violet Curry Preserve off of Sinclair Hills Road. And thank you for listening to my desires to stop an unwanted development.
Thank you, sir. Please sign in. Sir. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hi, thank you. My name is Greg Thole. I live at 7501 Mayfair, 2 blocks from the proposed site. I just want to, most of my issues have been already addressed, but I just want to reiterate the ingress-egress problem of one road going on to Berry Road is a total mistake. It's already hugely congested, and I see an accident there every week. I've lived there 25 years, and on my cul-de-sac also, we've had a recent sinkhole in one of the neighbors' yards where one of the pools came up out of the yard. There's groundwater problems. There's, big issues with having that area disturbed. And having 55 homes in that small acreage is very questionable. My yard, which is 2 blocks away, is almost a half acre alone. So how do you justify having so many homes in that small section, which will be taken away from the charm of the neighborhood, which is more open and free, and cramming in all these people and having the excess traffic, which will only disturb the nature of the neighborhood. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you for coming down. I appreciate it. All right, we'll go to the gentleman online. Mr. White, good evening.
Good evening. Sorry for not being able to be with you this evening, but just had some major surgery, so I thought I'd stay home and talk to you over the line here.
Thank you
My
for that.
wife
Could
and
you
I
give us your
moved
name and
into-
address? Excuse me, I'm sorry. Could you give us your name and address before you start?
7401 Spring Court, Tampa, 33634.
Thank you.
And to that address, my wife and I moved 45 years ago. And you'll notice that among the speakers, there are quite a few, and we know many people who've been here 30, 40, 45 years. And that itself tells you something about how we value this area. Our rationale for being here this evening is to establish the fact and to provide the evidence why it is not in the best interest of families or children to build this project. One thing that has been mentioned, the number of roads in various areas, but I think it's important to note that Waters Avenue goes across the whole top of 12 Oaks. And Waters Avenue is a 4-lane, extremely busy, with everything on both sides of it being business or restaurants or something. And that provides tremendous traffic, people come into that business, and they take shortcuts through 12 Oaks. On the east side, people have mentioned Benjamin Road. I don't think anybody mentioned, but Benjamin Road, all the way from Waters south to the airport, is an industrial park. Businesses of all kinds and trucks of all kinds. As a matter of fact, right on the corner of Benjamin and Barry Road that people have mentioned, there are 2 different places where they're truck storage places or something, but the traffic there is phenomenal. Getting in from Barry, going into Benjamin. But if you go the other area, all the way to the other end of Barry, you'll notice that it's always all one lane until you get to the end. And right before it gets into Hanley Road, it becomes 2 lanes. And it's already been mentioned, but there are numerous accidents that occur in that position because you've got directly across when you come out of Barry into Hanley, that's a 4-lane also. And right across the street, entering into the same corner, is a huge apartment complex. So coming from that side are apartments coming into there, and guess where they go? They don't go down Hanley or up Hanley, although that's extremely busy. They come right across Barry and go all the way down Barry. And that's
Sir,
why people find it so
We've
busy.
passed the 2 minutes. If you could please wrap it up.
Okay, there, just to give you one more to emphasize that, is down by the school, nobody's mentioned it, but the parents bring the children to school, and the baseball road that goes along that far side of 12 Oaks, it goes all the way to Hanley Road. And there've been numerous times where people backing up, starting at the school, getting to Hanley Road, and ending up going out. There's no other place to go, but they have to back into Hanley, and that's extremely dangerous. Hanley, a 4-lane road, and cars going to the school with children in the cars to be dropped off, but they're backed up onto Hanley Road. One final thing is that in the last visit we had, the person who represented the company mentioned that the problem was that all the people who spoke about this issue were talking about emotional things. And I just wanted to mention that the Hillsborough County has done numerous things like putting in a trail, putting in trees, and many other things. They've always supported greenery, and building this new addition would take away what little greenery is there.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your testimony. And so with that, we will close the opposition portion of the hearing, and we'll go back to Development Services. Ms. Heinrich, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, ma'am.
All right. Mr. Greenwell, let me ask you, because a person who spoke in opposition showed a letter that I have not yet seen. I believe they submitted into the record, so I will. But it mentioned a letter that you signed back in 2020 talking about this property and the former landfill and so forth. So I wanted to give you an opportunity to respond to that.
Yes, ma'am. That's one of our semi-annual reports. I'm not sure why they were unable to find more recent ones. We send that report out every 6 months. We also send out a quarterly landfill gas report because of the landfill gas that we've seen under the concessions area in the baseball area that was previously spoken about. Like I said, if you put a slab on grade out here and you do not remove the waste from that landfill, you will probably have gas underneath it. I would say there's a very high probability. To answer Ms. Pritchard's question, nothing's changed in the last 3 years. It's pretty much the same situation we had in 2020. And if you need those updated reports, they can certainly be provided to you. And I think what happened here for us in environmental services is because I had 2 different groups responding to this, this request. Basically, I think one of them somehow didn't make it into the record, which is the solid waste one.
All right. And so now, then it's your, what you're saying then is that those comments are now a part, and you support this added zoning condition that requires these additional permits and authorizations prior to any development of this as residential. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, I mean, those are both state and local county rules, so those have to be met. But as a general rule, I've practiced in this area in the area of landfilling since the late 80s, and putting houses on top of what was formerly a municipal landfill never works out very well. in the absence of actually removing the waste. So I don't know what the developer plans to do with regard to seeking the director's authorization, but short of removal of the source, the waste that's there, Environmental Services would have a lot of difficulty in supporting this application.
All right, thank you for that. I think that's critical to this application, so thank you for your testimony. All right, we'll go back to the applicant. Mr. Pressman, you have 5 minutes for rebuttal.
Well, let me say, I do have difficulty with the comments that are coming out tonight from staff, because as I look through the agency, not this staff, but is Mr. Greenwell or Mr. Greenwald?
Mr. Greenwell.
That's very concerning, because as we look through the agency reports, as I've indicated to you, read to you, they were all very positive. We know that the property owner has been interacting with the county and has signed agreements with the county. So I do have great concerns about the comments that we're hearing, and I think those need to be discerned. I think we need to be able to review those very closely with that staff and not hear them as we're speaking at a public hearing. I do want to put in the record that this would be a site that would be an infill. It's in the urban service area, has utilities. I think it's very important to note at the Planning Commission hearing, I counted approximately 80 people who showed up at that hearing. It was a big overflow crowd. We have a handful and more tonight. I think you counted 7, Madam Hearing Officer.
If you could please hold your comments, please. Go ahead, Mr. Pressman. Please.
If you'd like to confirm how many you counted, I thought it was 7.
There were 8, because there
Thank
was
you
one
very
on that
much.
board. Go ahead.
There were 8. And
Please, we can't have comments from that. Please, let the man speak. Go ahead.
I think it's important to notice that we noticed almost 150 people for this hearing. And this has been repeated hearing, so it's very clear on the record that we've done extremely well in addressing concerns of a large number of residents and noticing residents. I understand folks have concerns here, and I respect those, but I think there's a perspective that's very important in that regard. But in my first comments, I have grave concerns about moving forward with the comments that we've heard tonight. Those need to be discerned, and I think, in my personal opinion, that there are discrepancies between these different reports, and those have to be discerned before we can move forward.
Let me ask you a question, Mr. President. Were you aware of Mr. Greenwell's, have you talked to Mr. Greenwell in terms of those permits that are being required before this property could be developed in his department?
We're very comfortable with the condition the staff has presented, and those discussions have occurred. In fact, they're in the email chain that I submitted to you. But what I'm hearing from that gentleman is much different and much more detrimental, and I think we absolutely have to have that discerned and understand if all the departments are in agreement with this or some are not. And I don't think that that's a very clear picture tonight. As much as I would love to move forward, I don't think that we can.
So are you asking for a continuance?
I think we do have to do a continuance, yes.
All right, and let me just make this clear for the record. So you have not spoken with Mr. Greenwell prior to this hearing?
I have not.
And you were unaware of he said that he has 2 sections under him, and that the one submitted something and evidently another was not put into the record. Is that correct, Ms. Heinrich? That there are additional comments from Mr. Greenwell's department have come in?
Correct. Anything we did receive today, we have put in optics, but as Mr. Pressman said, I don't think he's had an opportunity to review those.
So those comments were submitted today, I see.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. And if, let me talk about your ability to continue within the constraints of the application being heard in a timely manner. Is there sufficient time to do that?
Our next hearing date is January 16th, but that would not be 30 days and allow the applicant to renotice. So that would take it to the February ZHM date, which is 2/20, and that is the last opportunity for this application, and then that would also change the related comp plan date.
I just received notice for BOCC tonight. It has not gone out. For the BOCC comp plan amendment, that notice has not gone out.
Understood.
And because we're a companion, there's no 6-month time limit.
Oh. You're correct. I'm sorry, Mr. Pressman.
Thank you.
So February 20th it still can't meet January due to renoticing requirements, but it could go to February 20th.
Correct.
Is that acceptable to you, Mr. Pressman?
Yes.
All right.
I would like to, if someone could give me the context for, is it Mr. Greenwell or Greenwald?
I have on his screen, it's Greenwell, Greenwell. Is that correct, Mr. Greenwell?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
We can
And I
provide
believe
that
they have
contact
spoken to
information.
my
Thank
staff.
you, Michelle.
I don't know about Mr. Pressman, but I believe there are folks that work, that are associated with it that have spoken to our staff about the annual reports, or the semi-annual reports, as well as the gas methane reports.
All right. I think, if I could just sum this up, I think, Mr. Greenwell, I think the concerns Mr. Pressman is saying is that you were, had reservations and perhaps, justified about the redevelopment of this, and he was not aware of those comments of your position prior to this. I believe that's his concern. Is that correct, Mr. Pressman?
I would just say that there's nothing in the Excel record, and that's what I go by, and that's what I review as the formal comments by the county.
All right. Well, given that, so I just want to make sure it's acceptable to you, the date of February 20th is acceptable to you?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Then we'll grant a continuance of this application to the February 20th zoning hearing, master hearing at 6 p.m. That would be rezoning PD 23-0472. Now, just so you understand, this is all part of the record. Your comments are all still part of the record. And so everything you've submitted, all of your testimony tonight are a part of this. None of this is deleted in any sense. It's just to provide that additional opportunity to make the record complete. So with that, we'll close that hearing and go to the last case.
Ms. Finch, we only have one more item, but I do know that it's 8 o'clock. I didn't know if you wanted to just press forward or take a break.
Let me ask the court reporter, are you good? Just 5 minutes. Okay, then let's take a 5-minute recess. It is 8:02, so if we could come back a little after, let's say 8:08, and we'll resume the hearing for the last case. Thank you so much. right, we're back for the last case of the December 18th, 2023 zoning hearing master hearing. So Ms. Heinrich, if you could call the last item, please.
That item is item D3, Major Mod Application 23-0883. This is a major modification request to Plan Development 22-0562. Chris Granlinar with Development Services will provide staff findings after the applicant's presentation.
All right, good evening.
Hello, my name is Bryce Pinson with Half Associates here on behalf of the client, 1000 North Ashley Drive, Tampa, Florida. So the location of this site is off of Causeway Boulevard and 86th Street. It's 7.22 acres in the Greater Palm River Area Community Plan and within the urban service area. The surrounding area is a mixture of residential and commercial uses. So to the northwest of the subject site, there is one single-family residential house, which we provide buffering, which you'll see on the plan for. And then to the east is a PD approved to be developed with warehouse, manufacturing, office, and retail uses. Also to the southeast is an existing automotive shop. To the west across 86th Street is a PD approved for multifamily, commercial, and mini warehouses currently under construction. The future land use is residential 9, which is approved for low, medium density residential, urban scale neighborhood commercial, office, some mixed use developments, and an FAR up to 0.5. The current approved PD was approved last year in 2022 for 2 development options. The first option is for 52 townhomes using a flex of Res 20 from the west, and then 5,000 square feet of retail uses. Option 2 is for 60 townhomes, not using any flex. So the proposed request is to keep options 1 and 2, but to add an option 3 that would be for 64 townhomes using the flex to the west, and also for a 12,000 square foot daycare for a max number of 200 students. There was an administrative variance found approvable by staff for 86th Street because it was recently upgraded and just finished construction and reopened to have 10-foot lanes and a 50-foot right-of-way. The TTM would require 86th Street to have 12-foot lanes and 54 feet of right-of-way. So that's what the design exception was for, because it wouldn't make sense to make changes to it now that it was just recently redeveloped to make those small changes. So for staff findings, Planning Commission found the request consistent with the future land use category and the community plan. And Development Services also found the request approvable. And I'm here if you have any questions.
No questions at this time. Thank you. If you would please sign in with the clerk's office, though. Thank you. Development Services.
Good evening. Chris Graulinar, Development Services. Here to present major modification 23-0883. The approximate 7.22 acre property is zoned PD 22-0562. PD 22-0562 was approved in 2022 with 2 development options. Option 1 has a 5,000 square feet of commercial entitlements and restrictions and 52 townhomes. Option 2 has 60 townhome units. The applicant requests a modification to add a third option to develop the site with up to 64 townhomes and a 12,000 square foot daycare with up to 200 students. The property contains 2 parcels and is generally located at the northeast corner of Causeway Boulevard and South 86th Street. The parcel to the north is vacant. The parcel to the south is developed with a church, car dealership, and a tow truck lot. The site is located north of Causeway Boulevard and located in the urban service area within the limits of Greater Palm River Community Plan. The surrounding area is predominantly a mixture of residential and commercial uses. Surrounding uses along Causeway Boulevard include commercial, single-family, residential, and multifamily residential. There's a church immediately north of the site and a mini warehouse to the northwest across South 86th Street. And the general proximity of the subject site is PD zoning to the east, south, and west, and agricultural single-family and agricultural rural zoning to the north. The PD to the west is approved for single-family, the PD to the west is approved for multifamily and commercial. To the east and the southwest are parcels with agricultural, single-family, conventional. The buffering and screening to the north was previously approved in PD 22-562 for a 5-foot buffer and type A screening. The applicant will revise the site plan prior to certification to meet the 10-foot buffer and type A screening requirements for the area between the daycare and residential. The subject property is designated residential 9 on the future land use map. The Planning Commission found the proposed use consistent with the complete comprehensive plan. The current PD 22-562 is already approved for residential townhomes and commercial general uses. The addition of a third option, which includes a 64 townhomes and 12,000 square feet daycare, which provides additional residential support uses, would be consistent with the currently approved PD. Also, the PD to the west is approved for multifamily and commercial. Therefore, the modification of PD 22-562 to allow for a third option to develop the site with up to 64 townhomes and 12,000 square foot daycare with up to 200 students would be consistent with the existing zoning pattern of the area. Based on the residential 9 future land use classification, the surrounding zoning and development pattern, and the proposed uses for the modified plan development district, staff finds the request approvable subject to proposed conditions. That concludes my staff report. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
None at this time, but thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Planning Commission.
Andrea Pappendrew, Planning Commission staff. The site is in the residential 9 future land use category and is within the Greater Palm River Community Plan. Subject property is designated residential 9, and the intent of this future land use category is to designate areas that are suitable for low, medium density residential, as well as urban scale neighborhood commercial, office, multi-purpose projects, and mixed-use developments. The proposed third development option, which includes residential and residential support use, meets the intent of the residential 9 future land use category, Objective 8 and Policy 8.1. This site is surrounded by residential 9 to the north, east, and south. To the west is residential 20. Residential 20 and residential 9 are located to the south and southeast. Further southwest of the site is office commercial 20, and further north and east is community mixed use 12 and urban mixed use 20. Along Causeway Boulevard, uses include light and heavy commercial, single-family residential, and multifamily residential. There is a church immediately north and a mini warehouse to the northwest across South 86th Street. Policy 1.4 requires that all new developments to be compatible with the surrounding area. The proposed development option is compatible and in scale with the character of the area and meets the intent of Policy 1.4. Objective 16 in its policies protect existing neighborhoods and communities. The development pattern along Causeway Boulevard has a mix of uses consistent with the scale of what is proposed. The third development option shows buffering and screening that would mitigate adverse impacts to the surrounding properties. Third development option is also consistent with the flex provisions outlined in Policy 7.3 and 7.4. The applicant is proposing a flex of 2.2 acres of residential 20 to the west. In addition, the site plan reserves a minimum area of 34,285.71 square feet for the proposed daycare use, which is below the allowable 0.50 floor area ratio for the residential 9. The proposed meets the intent of the Greater Palm River Community Plan. It promotes and provides opportunities for compatible, well-designed public use, residential and business growth, and jobs. The proposal promotes infill and redevelopment at scales that reflects the character of the existing community. Based upon the above considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed major modification consistent with the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan, subject to conditions proposed by the Hillsborough County Development Services Department.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Is there anyone in the room or online that would like to speak in support? Seeing no one, anyone in opposition to this request? No one. Ms. Heinrich, anything else?
No, ma'am.
The applicant, you have any last word? Okay, then thank you for that. I appreciate it. All right, then with that, we'll close major modification 23-0883. Wishing everyone a happy holidays, and we will adjourn the hearing. Thank you so much for your time.